Hello guys and welcome to my video focusing call-ins, where we take a deeper dive than I did in my officer guide. You check that video out to know the basics of call-ins. Call-ins are divided by their type, but we could also divide them by the area of effect. As you know, most have a circular area of effect, while some are deployed in a line. And finally, Bomber Squadron combines 3 lines together. Note that I strongly recommend using boosted call-ins as they offer more shells, bombs or a longer duration. Something else that I recommend you is not to use artillery call-ins above trenches, as it won't kill as much players and artillery in general is perceived as weak compared to planes. Note that the planes got nerfed with the Caporetto update, artillery got buffed and they changed the amount of shells. We all know that call-ins need some time before they are active on the battlefield. I did measure this delay, it seemed to be constant though. I asked on the official Discord, but I didn't get any answer from any developers. The values are rounded up to seconds. The quickest call-ins to be deployed are mortars and field guns, while you will have to wait the longest for a bomber. Everything else is in between. Now that we know the delays and performance of call-ins, we can rank them. I rank them into 3 categories, according to how I would use them. We have most of them in the use category, colored green. Mortars are a bit of a mixed bag in my opinion, as if you wait longer you get barrage, which offers more shells with the same delay. Yet if you don't have it, mortars are also useful. Then we have the yellow category, or moderated use. These call-ins can be used if you really have to use something and you don't have a better call-in. I put recon into this category, even though I think that recon plane is a waste of a call-in, but please do know that the area that it spots is bigger than of the Mountaineer's flare. Lastly, we have the do not use category in red, which are really a waste of a call-in. Let's take heavy artillery for example. You only get 3 shells, but if you wait a bit longer you get a barrage, which doubles the amount of shells and it also deploys quicker. The same goes for an aerial bomb. If you wait just a bit longer you get the strafing run, which offers bigger area of effect. Also, the effectiveness of the aerial bomb is questionable. Yet if it is the only thing you have available and you must use it now, in that case anything is better than nothing. In the next part of the videos I will show practical examples of the use category, both as attacker and defender. But before I get to it, please consider the delay, as otherwise the call-in will not achieve its intended goal. Also communicate with your team, let them know when you are deploying smoke, artillery or planes. Firstly, I will cover mortars and barrage, as they both have a circular effect and are both artillery call-ins. As an attacker, you can use mortars on a certain part of the front to weaken or suppress the enemy there. But do this only if your team is pushing through there and needs a bit of help. Do not use barrage for that, only mortars. Once the bomb is planted, ideally already before it, you should place an artillery call-in on the objective. I would recommend the barrage as it lasts longer and has more shells. This way you discourage the enemy from getting it, or if there is anybody there, he will most likely get killed. When it comes to the capture zone, you can put the artillery on the zone if it is mostly in enemy control. If however you have most of it under your control, in that case, put it partially on the objective but mostly towards the way from where the enemies are coming. This way you can kill some people and delay any enemy reinforcements headed to the zone. Now let's see how to use the same 2 call-ins as a defender. You can call in mortars on a point of the front where you know for sure that there are multiple enemies trying to break through, yet it can be risky. What I would suggest, once the enemies set up a spawn point, or better, are about to do so, place artillery on them. This way you will kill some of the people that spawn there, gifting your team precious time to react to the enemy advance. Now let's talk about the destructible objective. You can call in artillery on it either before the enemy get to it, but their push looks promising, or right after it is planted. This way, you will pin or even kill the defenders in the zone, while your teammates are immune and can just walk in and defuse. The same logic applies for the capture zone. You can apply it on the objective or move it a bit towards the direction of enemies' reinforcements, depending on the situation, of course. Let's see how you should use the last artillery calling, the creeping barrage. As an attacker, you can call it parallel to a trench. As said, this will probably not kill the people inside the trench, but at certain locations people stay outside, those are potential casualties, but the main goal is to pin down the defenders, as having artillery going around you is not relaxing. For the distractible objective, I rarely use creeping barrage, but I do use it for the capture zone. I place it so that it starts from the inside of the zone and heads towards the direction from where the enemies are reinforcing. As a defender, you can do the same trick by having the barrage start partially in the zone and moving towards the enemy's approach. Again, I do not recommend the creeping barrage for the distractible objective. Now let's cover the use of the small smoke cover. Smoke is to provide cover for an advancing teammates. Usually it is used for the initial push towards the enemy front line, but it can also be used later on for when you are having issues with an objective. Smoke is also useful while defending, as certain objectives require your team to cross open ground and are easy targets for the enemy. Carso, on this sector, is a good example for both objectives. That's why you should provide cover. The only issue is that it takes 20 seconds to deploy. So unless you call it in at the right moment, predicting what is it likely to happen, otherwise it will be a wasted call-in. We will be taking a look at creeping smoke next, but for now we have to cover the uses for gas. As an attacker, you can use gas on enemy spawn points or on a part of the front the team is trying to break through. I personally rarely use gas on the distractible objective, but it is quite usable on the capturable objective. In this case, defenders have to use gas mask, which slows them down a bit, while gas also gives your team the advantage, as looking into the gas it is easier to spot people than looking from within the gas as you move out. As a defender, you can use gas much more than the attacker, as you rarely need smoke, which is in the same call-in group. You should use gas on enemy spawn point. The other option is to place it in front of objectives for the same reason that I mentioned on the attack. Creeping smoke can be used to have a safe corridor to break through the enemy trench or move towards the objective. Another way of using creeping smoke is parallel to enemy trenches, thus blinding a big part of the front or an objective. Not many people do this, but they should. As any smoke, as a defender, it is used to provide cover for your own troops to reinforce, as I pointed out. With small smoke cover, good timing is crucial for it to work. Note that the smoke on A starts afar and moves towards our own line. This is used to provide cover, like the normal smoke, but also from being sniped from around the B zone. Now let's talk about strafing run. Unlike artillery, it is effective over trenches, but it is not the only way of using it. You can use it over positions where there are multiple defenders placed. Ideally, call it parallel to enemy lines. For the capturable objective, you can use it in two ways. The first way is where the enemy are holding it, but your team is pushing for it. The other option is when you are mostly holding and you need to fend off reinforcements. In such cases, place the call-in so that it comes from behind over the enemy's approach, as it is unlikely for the enemy to notice it and move out of its way. As a defender, the strafing run is also very useful. It can be used to clear out an enemy breakthrough. It can be also used to slow down or hold the enemy advance towards the objectives. Last but not least, we have the bomber squadron. It is typically used to clear out bigger parts of the map, usually behind the first trench line. In general, try not to use it over trenches. Also, the overall effectiveness of bombers was decreased with the Caporet update. Here as well, you should call in bombers to come from behind the enemy, as they are less likely to react or hide. If however you do not have a flare in such a position, send it as usual, and it will have an effect regardless. As the defender, the use of bomber squadron is pretty similar to the attackers. When your team needs some respite or you are contesting an objective, call in bombers so that they start deploying inside the objective and they move towards where the enemies are incoming. So, this is my take for the in-depth look at call-ins. Some people might do things differently, but I do think that I provided useful information. One thing to always keep in mind is the delay between a call-in being ordered and when it is actually deployed. If you did like this video, please share it with your friends, give it a like or leave a comment and tell me and the others what is it that you found most useful from this video. I will see you all on the battlefields. Gaming Teacher out.